So
Yeah.
tell me about how you were introduced to gymnastics, your early story.
Okay. I started gymnastics. Actually, I started dancing school and we would learn tumbling and that kind of acrobatics. And I was just really pretty, adept at it. And I was big ham. So I would get solos on our end of the year performances with gymnastics and stuff. And my dance teacher told my mom, get her involved. I mean, she really seems to like it. So I actually had a late start to some extent. I did Turners, which I don't know if you ever heard of those,
Yep.
the German organization, which wasn't really, I mean, it's gymnastics, but it was interesting because the vault was a short vault, like it was a
Yep.
half a vault. The beams were wood. That's all they had because you had to pull them in and out. The bars were literally P bars that they raised one side.
Wow.
Yeah. And it wasn't really, I mean, it was gymnastics, but it wasn't per
Mhm.
se.
Old
And
school. It's really old school.
yeah, I mean, the older they had levels, they only compete against other turners and they had different levels, but they
Yes.
had women in their 40s, 50s competing and they were doing scales and on the bars and jumping and doing, you know, kick over, like jumping up the handstand and
Right.
dismounting off with a high bar, like you saw back in the 50s or whatever those time frames were. That's what they were doing. And I thought, wow, this is gymnastics, but I had no clue. And then from there, I went to a YWCA,
Mhm.
which again was a step up because we did what was back then the USGF, but
Right.
we did the same compulsory routines, but
Mhm.
we only competed against other Ys, so it was
Right.
limited.
Okay.
And the equipment we had to pull in and out every day because the gym was
Oh,
also used for basketball and volleyball and
yep.
karate and everything else because it was a Y. So we couldn't keep our equipment out. So the
Yep.
bars weren't anchored to the floor. And the floor was not spring because we had to literally fold it out and fold it back in and bring it back into the equipment room.
Community gymnastics.
Yes.
That's it.
I guess you would understand that, huh?
I do. Yes.
So then from there, I was there for a little while and a couple of years, and then the coach there basically told my parents that they taken me as far as they could, and that I needed to go somewhere else if I wanted to continue to do gymnastics. So at that point in time, I went to arena gymnastics in Stamford, Connecticut, which
Okay.
is interesting because I'm from New York, and I had to go up to Connecticut every day for gym. But by that time, I was actually in eighth grade,
Okay. All right.
so
Wow.
it
How
was
far
pretty
was that
steep.
commute?
It was about a 45-minute commute, but I had to take the train every day because my mom was working. And I know where we had practice at 2:30 in the afternoon. So I literally would get picked up from school from a cab. It would take me to the train station. I would take the train from New Rochelle, New York, or depending on the day, the train station, all up to Stamford, Connecticut. And then I would catch a bus that took me right outside the gym.
Wow.
So every day I did that commute by myself. It was interesting, and people were like, "Oh, today you couldn't do that," which maybe not. But I used to sit up front where the conductor was every day, and so eventually they got to know me. All the conductors knew who I was because 5 days a week I was on this train all the way up to Stamford, Connecticut. So it
Amazing.
was it was interesting. Hour and a half commute by train and but like that type of commute from public transportation took me about an hour and a half. And
Mm,
my mom would pick me up in the evening when we were done.
that's how long did you do that for?
I did that for 3 years.
Wow. In your gym, in Black gyms in history, were there a lot of other Black gymnasts? How was the environment there?
It was, I didn't feel uncomfortable ever. I will say that much, which is pretty interesting because there were no other Black gymnasts at the time when I first went there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I never felt like I didn't belong there per se. What I think was a thing that I felt, and maybe I mistook it for something else, was the fact that here was this kid who came in. I was supposed to be a class 3, and here I am working out with them. I'm competing against them, and now I'm winning states and I'm winning regionals. And they're like, where did this kid come from? So I think some of the animosity I felt was because people were like, who is she?
Mm-hmm.
Not so much because I was Black. But I can't say that honestly, that wasn't the case. It's
Right.
just that my inexperienced young age, I thought it was just because I was kind of doing better than them athletically.
Mm-hmm.
So looking back on it now, I think to some extent it might have been, but I'm still friends with so many of my teammates from back then that I realized that it really wasn't. I mean, it was a family,
Mm-hmm.
like a lot of gyms are. So
Right.
it was special, and we had a lot of change. When we started going people elite, we had Mira Grossfeld that just closed her gym.
Ah, okay.
And so a lot of the kids came from Grossfeld's. Some
Mhm.
of the coaches came from Grossfeld's.
Right.
So they were much more open and used to dealing with the more diverse because they'd been on the elite scene and they had kids that had actually lived and moved away from home.
Right. That's right.
So they had more experience, I would say, as far as the diversity of kids that they worked with.
Mm-hmm.
And so we got quite a few people that came there. And I want to say I had four coaches at that time, and all four of them worked at Grossfeld's at some point in time.
Wow. That's amazing.
They'd all been trained by Mira Grossfeld.
Wow. I know we want to make a note because Muriel passed away just a little bit ago, and her impact, which we stopped to tell everybody because it's